Good morning, and today's gonna be 5-2. We are under the gun. We're folding this. Next player open raises, and then cutoff calls, small blind calls. Preflop raisers playing 14-8. This guy looks tight, especially in early position. You can see raise first in stats 8%. We're looking at 8% here. It's gonna be a pretty tight range. So I put together a list. This is 8%, and I'm going to point out that we could take these out and add like 7s and 6s in, or just 7s, and it gets us there as well. It's just a question of what do most players play. Do they do with the lower pocket pairs with 6s and 7s, or just 7s, or do they prefer like king 10, queen 10? I'm going to leave this. So suited Broadway, and we'll just go with it. The square is playing 18-5. He is not overly loose, doesn't really 3-bet. 50 chances to do that, and he hasn't 3-bet at all. I think 3-bet range is probably queens plus ace king. That's going to probably be tight enough for him. He's playing 17% the cutoff. This is basically the first time that he's called. Only 133 hands. So I'm putting him a range like this. I think, you're in position for the cutoff. I definitely think you have these pocket pairs. You've got some of these Broadways, and then possibly suited connectors here, and maybe even the suited aces. I know he's going to be wider than, let's say, if this guy called. So I'm going to go with this, probably the wider range here. And then we have the small blind. Here's the range that I gave him, 8% pocket pairs. This player, we do have some notes on him, how he's played in the blind. Unfortunately, we haven't been in this situation where he calls the small blind. So we do have call two bets from the blinds ranges. That's a lot of hands. You can see Broadway, basically. You could see suited jacks, maybe jack 3, suited kings, suited aces, pocket pair. But I think when we actually look at the hands, call 2-bet, he had 7 out of 27 from the big blind, 3 out of 19 from the small blind. So I'm going to guess the small blind is going to be a much tighter range than the big blind. And for that reason, I went with the pocket pair and just these Broadway hands. I think all of the other hands, he might just fold out of the small blind. I mean, at least that's it. His percentages of 14-11 looks like he'll be tighter in the small blind. So we've got our ranges. Let's go ahead and see what happens. We flop Ac4d2h4h2s. Villain checks, no big surprise. This guy checks, so that is surprising. That kind of eliminates top pair for me. Kind of eliminates a set. So it's going to strongly think you've got one of these under pairs here, or like one of these no-made hands. I think he's probably going to be c-betting. Most players c-bet if they flop that ace. And because he didn't, now I'm thinking he's got an under pair. He does not have an ace. And this would be a great spot for villain 6 if he had an ace to go ahead and bet. You still have to worry about villain 1, the small blind, and that's, I think, the reason why I wouldn't just arbitrarily bet here. It's 3-way pot. We're going to have to be a little bit more straightforward. Just a little bit more straightforward. So he had an opportunity to bet. He chose not to. I think the set's probably going to bet in this case, and I think our good top pair hands are probably going to bet, like ace queen, ace jack, maybe even all of them. At least ace queen, ace jack. We'll leave the other ones as possible checks. I don't think he attacks, so we're going to have to check the flop probe, or float, you could say. Okay, 2 out of 2. but would he do a three-way? So if he doesn't bet, then I'm going to eliminate all of the top pair hands, but I'll leave the under pair. I'll leave the rest of this. So we've got two players that we've reduced their range. Now we have one player remaining. So now it's a check. It already went check, check. So could this guy have queen narrow his range? Well, I think quads and full house in this situation is probably just going to check. I think he probably would have been hoping for a bet if he flop trips and now has quads, or flop trips, you know, let's say with pocket twos and now has a full house. I think he's going to slow play it here and hope one of these players bet. For him, he's thinking, great, ace, that's what I want. Someone's going to have an ace, someone's going to bet, I'm going to win money from this. But when they didn't, you know, now he's going to be thinking, well, I need to make some money, but the ace is still out there. I can't really bet, because if somebody doesn't have an ace, they're just going to fold. So let me check, and maybe then one of these players will take a stab at the pot and I can check raise them. So I think that's kind of the reason why I think they're going to check these quads. What about top pair? I kind of think top pair is probably going to bet. So I'm going to say 50% chance that he would have bet here. I think all the rest is probably still just going to be a check, even those flush draws. Villain 3 checks, villain 6 checks. This guy, I think once he checks, he's always going to check, you know, 100%. This guy checked, same thing. I think 100%. We're not narrowing the range down. River's a 2. Could be a split pot. Everyone checks. So at this point, I think this guy definitely does not have quads. He would have bet. I think top pair probably bets. But he could also be thinking that if he bets with the ace, is he really going to get called? I think I would. Because there's going to be a lot of people thinking, well, you know, the ace on board is going to play. It could be, you know, 2 pair ace high. And, you know, with the 10 big blind pot, you know, you bet 5. Someone's going to, you know, one, maybe both are going to just call 5 just to keep you honest, really, to see if you actually do have an ace. You do have to worry about pocket pairs. I think you're going to get called by pocket pairs too. So I think with top pair, you should be betting that. But with pocket pair below top pair, I think I'm hesitant. Even with jacks, I think I'm hesitant to bet, because this guy suggests that he could have one of those big pocket pairs. And of the pairs that he could have, and we had jack, you're basically looking at maybe a little less than, well, yeah, 3 to 2. 3 combos to 2, or 3 sets of combos versus 2 sets of combos would beat us. So jack's probably in that middle range. So yeah, I think he's probably, this villain probably has those. This guy, again, maybe he doesn't bet top pair. And of course, this guy is definitely weak. So we show down. And we actually have hands that are all in their ranges too. So we've got pocket 10s. That was in his range. You had king jack. That was in this guy's range, right? Had the nothing hand. And then you had queens. That not in his range, because I assume queens would be raised. So we're gonna go back pre-flop and just see what that bet size was. So it was 3. And we're gonna add some notes here because I thought that was interesting. Okay, so pre-flop, that's called cutoff from the button. Let's say here, call EP2 3 big blind RFI on cutoff with queen of spades, queen of diamonds, in position 3-way, check 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 on ace of clubs, 4 diamonds, 2 of hearts, 4 hearts, 2 of spades. All right, so we've got that guy. That's interesting. We've got that. So now you can ask, he had the opportunity to 3-bet with queens. He did not do that. So I would have queens, probably scale the ace king too. Maybe do 50% ace king, because if he's not raising queens, he might not be raising ace king. But again, that's a personality trait. Some people will bet those ace kings. Some people, always bet the ace king. Some people won't. We'll add him. So we have we've got the overcall, low jack. So now we've got overcall, EP2, 3 big blinds, RFI in small blind with 10 of diamonds, 10 of spades. He is out of position 3-way. Check, check, check. All right. And then we'll write down here, RFI 3 big blinds in EP2 with King Jack hearts. He is MP 3-way. Check, check, check. All right. So let's talk about the hands. Yeah, missed his hand, but that's okay. We just kind of make assumptions about ranges. We kind of had pocket pairs in his range. It's just we didn't know. He had jacks, and queens are just the one rank above. So I think we're close. We're not going to be 100% all the time. What about this guy? I think this guy has the opportunity to bet, and I think he probably should bet with that king jack. He's going to have some value hands here. This is backdoor flush draw potential. He could mix in, if we go back to turn and river, this player, he had top pair. You say, yeah, he's going to bet our top pair hand. He bets a set. You're at 35%. You're basically going to need some of these draws to help balance. I actually think like 8s and 9s are going to help to balance it, and 10s. So right at that, we're probably about half and half. If you include all of these backdoor flush draws. And that gets you a C-bet of about 74%. So I do think he missed a C-bet. He bets a C-bet. Of course, he's probably going to call. And 10s may call too. I would venture a guess that one of these will fold. So either he folds and he calls, or he calls and he folds. But then what's pretty good for early position players, that the turn brings the heart for him. So that's a great card to then fire a second barrel on. So if we had that, and then the 4 hearts comes out, now you're looking at, okay, he's continuing to bet the full house. I think he's probably maybe not betting all of these. I mean, he could. You're at 50%. You fire out that flush draw. The flush draw is only 14%, so we can kind of narrow it down a little bit and say, okay, well, we can't bet all of our top pairs, so maybe we withhold like ace 10, ace jack, maybe some of these ace queen. That gets us closer to it, and then you could throw in like just some junk hand. It's probably getting us a little bit closer. But again, when you fire that, I think you apply a lot of pressure to both the queens and the 10s, because they're not going to know if you actually do it. Well, they don't know what hand you have, but your flop and your turn bet really starts to suggest that you have an ace. Because what else are you going to be betting? And that's gonna pick up the pot for this guy. So if he was a little bit more aggressive, I think he probably would have won this pot instead of letting the pot go to queens. And if we look at it, there's 10 big blinds in there. He's invested 3, so it's 7 big blinds that he would have won minus the rake. And then if he fired 5 big blinds right here and got another 5, so now you're at 12 big blinds that he would have won minus the rake. And then on the turn, that's probably he bets, and I think he would have got, gotten the fold. So yeah, that's, I think he misplayed it. He had the opportunity, he chose not to do it. What about these other players? Once you missed a c bet, I actually don't fault either of those players for checking. I think once the flop goes check check, I think tens has the opportunity to bet, and I think tens would be the most likely player for individuals to think that he has the ace, because I think it would be natural for him to check call any ace that he has. So ace jack, ace 10, ace 9, if he has that, that would be natural. I think queens would be hard to represent the ace once he checks that flop, because if he had the ace, why not bet the flop? Even if you have like ace 2, ace 3, why would you bet that? Or I think you would bet that on the flop. So I think this guy misplayed it. He could have won the pot. I think he missed his opportunity on the turn to bet and have a chance of picking up the pot. If he bets and gets called by, let's say, he's getting called by king jack, I think once he gets called by king jack, I think queens are going to have a hard time calling. And he has to bet high enough. So once he bets and king jack calls, then on the river, when that comes to 2, you're probably checking and probably check calling with the 10, and then you win. So again, I think the 10s missed an opportunity to bet on the turn. That's my opinion. Hopefully we can learn some stuff from this, and really a thing that I've learned by going through all these hands is that when the flop goes checks through, there's usually a lot of weak hands, especially if I'm in one of these later positions and it checks through, and the early position, the blinds check the turn again, then they're usually fairly weak. They don't have, anything like top pair plus. They just don't have it. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed this hand. You can look tomorrow. I plan to do another one tomorrow as well as on Monday, despite it being a holiday weekend. All right, look again for that next video.